it's a weird little movie, and it's not really my movie. It's based on my story. My son wrote the screenplay, so the scenes are a lot of them are not in the story, but I think it's the scene when they are on the rooftop watching how the dead, Walking Dead, respond to music. That's, I think, my favorite scene in his screenplay. So I love that. That's not in my story. His screenplay is better than my story. It really is. It's very funny. He's kind of odd. The movie is To Kill a Mockingbird, and in that scene, it's also in the book. So I have to say too that the book is my favorite novel, and so there's a scene where Atticus, the main character, sits in front of the jail to make sure that the townspeople don't break in and kill this black man that's been arrested. And he may or may not have committed the crime. At that point, we don't know in the film. But he has a chair, and he has a lamp, and he has a book. And that's all. And he's just waiting there for them. His children sneak off and arrive there. And the main character who's telling the story, her name is Scout. She begins to just walk up and start talking to these people because she doesn't know they're a mob. And they become so embarrassed with what they're about to do that they don't do it, that they break loose and go away. That's my favorite scene in any movie, and it's my favorite scene in the book, which is also To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Sometimes they're very similar, but the difference in like a film is you can only see it. You know, you can't get in the heads of the character. I mean, you can have voiceovers and things like that, but it rarely works as well. Sometimes it works pretty good, but there's so much that you can do in a novel or a short story where you can get into the inside of the character's head or other characters, and you have some knowledge about them that can give you greater impact than just what you see. But in a film, it's what you see and what they say only. And so I think that that's the big difference. And you have to set a scene where it has a tremendous amount of impact so that wherever it takes place, wherever its location is, the visuals have to tell you a lot. The actor has to tell you a lot by not only what they say, but how they conduct themselves. So it's a different way of writing. You know, it's a different way of looking at things. And the biggest difference in film, as I always say, it's called beat the clock, because you only have so much time. So therefore, no scene can get too long because you can't have a 10-hour movie unless it's a miniseries or something. Oh my gosh, there are so many. I mean, you got to remember that I started reading comic books in the 1950s. So I've been around reading comic books ever since I was, 4 or 5 years old. I think for me it was always just the fact that when I was young, everything around me seemed very drab. It wasn't necessarily that way, but as a child, it seemed that way. It seemed like my world was in black and white until I discovered comic books. And then everything was that I saw there was bright and brilliant. So I don't know that it was a specific panel or anything like that. There have been some later on that impressed me, but at that time it was just the fact that it was in color and it was dynamic and that it had a world that was outside of my own. Now I'm just as fascinated by my own. But then it was this difference, this color, this exotic atmosphere that the comic created. Now I love comics. You don't want to get me too started on comics. My son is adapting one of my stories now to comics. So he's doing a good job too.